Good morning, guys. It is filter maintenance time. I've gone ahead and turned off the water flow to this waterfall. And I'm going to, this time around, I'm going to backwash it. I am going to replace the batting that I have in it. I got this box at Walmart, and this time I'm going to add bio balls to the top of the filter. It's going to be one for each waterfall. These are supposed to help grow more beneficial bacteria. So the water is getting held in here, and I'm going to go ahead and open this valve, and I already have my hose directed towards my largest garden that I have, and it'll just drain out into that garden. So I wanted to show you guys, this is the hose. This is what's draining out of that barrel. The water doesn't look too dirty, so I guess it's not too bad. For that reason, I'm going to use the same fiber, the same padding that I have in those barrels. I'm going to keep it because it already has the beneficial bacteria in it. So I'm going to continue to use it. I'm just going to add the bio balls on top and replace the polyfill, because the polyfill is what has accumulated, a lot of accumulated gunk. So this is what's being left behind in the barrel, and I'm pretty sure now we're going to be seeing that dirty water come out of that hose. Once all this water drains out, I'm going to start rinsing all of this a little bit at a time. First with regular water, and then I'm going to rinse it with pond water and add a little bit of dechlorinator. I just cannot get myself to not add any dechlorinator after I've had that chlorinated water on here. Just better safe than sorry, guys. But all that is all the waste that accumulated, and I'm pretty sure my water's looking pretty dirty now at this point on that drain hose. Now after I've been rinsing, the water's a lot murkier after I've rinsed all those pads out. Now all the gunk is coming out. In order to conserve as much beneficial bacteria as possible, guys, I decided to do what I did last year and rinse all the stuff that's in my filters in pond water. All this stuff is already growing beneficial bacteria, so the last thing we want to do is to set it behind and kill that bacteria with chlorinated water. So I'm gonna rinse all of that with pond water. Then I'm gonna rinse the actual container with the hose and then wash it out with pond water again. And it'll be ready to be refilled again with all the newer stuff. A lot of this old stuff is gonna go back in. I'll show you when I'm done. That I'm going to do, guys, I have rinsed a few stones in this water, and I'm going to go ahead and place the bio balls, the new bio balls in it. I'm hoping that they pick up a little bit of that bacteria. Never know, can't hurt it. So there it is. I went ahead and I put the bio balls in the other bucket that was more soiled from all the stuff that I rinsed from the waterfall filter. You got to keep in mind, guys, these filters, even though they look gunky, all this gunk, it's amazing beneficial bacteria that's living in there. So we have to be careful to preserve as much as possible every time we clean the filters out. And that's why I'm soaking these bio balls in all of that leftover water from all the stuff I've rinsed in there, in hopes that it will absorb, or some of that beneficial bacteria will attach to some of this. Okay, guys, so I decided, at the risk of losing bacteria, I'm going to rinse these pads individually. You see this white side here? That white side lets water through, but the pink side does not. It keeps the water in. So had I just flushed the water as so, I wouldn't have gotten much of the accumulation in the front. So to not risk and lose all this beneficial bacteria, since my pond is barely going to be a year old. Come August this year, I'm going to rinse it with a hose a little bit, you know, and then submerge it into some pond water in hopes that I reattach some of the bacteria that I've rinsed off. This is just me based on what I've heard on the YouTube channels and that I've followed or come across. Beneficial bacteria is important, guys, especially if your pond is fairly new like mine. So I will continue to use the hose because that's the best way to rinse all of this accumulation out. But I will reintroduce the pond water to my filter pads and all of the other things that I'm rinsing out. Thing I wanted to say, guys, this is going to be the third season that I clean out these waterfall filters, and I gotta say the smell is not as bad as it was the first time. I'm pretty sure that it's because of that beneficial bacteria that is actually breaking down all the nitrite in the canister, in the filter pads. So it's working, guys. My water is clearing up a little better. Like I had mentioned before, there are a few things that I'm going to be adding to these filters this time around. And let me show you the two things that I was missing. The polyfill is going to be put into this. And then these pure pond bombs are going to be put at the bottom of my waterfall, because this one feeds from the bottom up. And it's basically beneficial bacteria. So that when the water comes up through the pads, all that bacteria gets caught into the pads before it goes to the pond. I'll more than likely be adding 2 more just in the pond itself. So I have never reused the polyfill, but this one I actually got from one of those huge dog pillows last year that Henry was so kind to tear up after only a day of use. So since the pillow was far gone, I went ahead and I took all the filling out of it, and I used it for my filter since it was still brand new. And I gotta say, this filling is really nice. I'm not sure what the material is, but it's not like the white one I used in the past. This one is not disintegrated. Once I rinse it, it looks like new. So I'm gonna go ahead and add it to that new polyfill that I bought. Since it's doing good, I'm gonna go ahead and reuse this one, guys. Wanted to show you guys. The lower you get on that padding, the more soiled it gets. These first paddings are the ones that get most of the residue. Every single piece had some accumulation, but the lower you get, the worse it is. This one is a bottom fill, like it fills from the bottom up. So little by little, I've been learning what to do to make sure it has a more efficient function. So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and switch it up a little bit. Instead of putting these large pieces on the bottom, I'm going to put all those little ones first. So it allows more of that water to flow, and it just takes the bigger chunks. And then the more closed fibers will be going on top. It's a learning curve, guys. This is as good as it gets. We have all the pipes are underneath that plastic. This is a hard plastic that separates all the pipe from the actual media, so we can prevent anything clogging under there. I will not scrub all of this stuff in there. I just rinsed it. That little bit of water remains in there because, you know, that's as far as the drain goes. So now I'm going to start replacing everything little by little. But like I said, all the smaller pieces are going to go first. This is the thicker, most porous fiber that I have, or media. So I'm going to go ahead and add this first on the very bottom. Then I'm going to put all these little pieces in there. Then I'm going to do the whole circles. Larger pieces go next. And lastly will be this foam here, which is really, really tight. I do have a few pantyhose filled with crushed coral. I'm sorry. These are filled with crushed coral, as well as a few shells that I found along the way. I do have oysters in here and snails. So this stuff decomposes, as you can see, into the water column, and it feeds them calcium. This feeds the crustaceans I have in there calcium. I haven't seen any of them other than snails, but I'm sure a few are in there. This is the black charcoal. This is black charcoal. It's not enough for that filter, but nevertheless it's more media for the bacteria to harvest in, so I'm keeping it in there. This is one of my old fish tank filters, which ended up in there, and I'm leaving it. Again, more media. This is some barley. It used to be pretty big, and now it's decomposed to this. And then these are the stones that I weigh everything down with. That goes last. All this stuff goes last. And then on top of all the larger pads, on top of this one, I'm going to put my bio balls that I just got that have been soaking through all this entire time in the pond water. I used pond water that I used to rinse a lot of that padding to make sure that it ferments really well with beneficial bacteria. Under all of it, I am going to put a pure pond balm, which has a lot of beneficial bacteria. So this is going to go first on the very bottom, and then all of that filter media that I just showed you guys. And right before I put the rocks, right before the bio balls, is going to go my polyfill. So here's a glimpse of it, guys. The blue thicker fiber is going underneath. Before all of this, I put the bio ball in there. I scattered it throughout with the gel, threw all of it in there. Next thing that's going to go in is going to be all those little pieces. So after putting all the small pieces in that pond balm in there, now I'm going to continue with the bigger filter pads. This side doesn't allow water to come through anymore. So since mine feeds from the bottom up, I'm going to face it downward. Water comes through, but it won't allow it to come back. Or it'll have more resistance when coming back. Make sure that when you're placing all the items in the filter, that you don't have any gaps, that you cover every layer completely around. So all the water is forced to go through every single piece of product that you have. I have in here until I start taking them out again. If I fall short on one side, compensate with the next layer. Most of these are pretty well sized. Yes, two. So after this filter media, I'm going to go ahead and put my polyfill because it has more way to pass through. It's not as tight of a weave. So what I did is that I put the old filter padding towards the bottom, the old polyfill, I'm sorry, towards the bottom. Remember that this one has the beneficial bacteria. So as the water runs through it, it'll get some of that beneficial bacteria onto the new one. So that should help our system a bit more. Once it's in here, I'm just going to make sure again that it covers every single area. Just stretch it out. I put this in one of those laundry basket, cloth baskets, or bags rather. It'd be easier to just pull the whole thing out next year as opposed to how I did it today, that it was individual pieces. After this, I'm going to put my tighter foam, my thicker foam, less porous foam, goes on the very top. And again, all these little nooks are covered with other pieces of foam. Lost 2 little pieces. I'm just gonna, one piece, I'm gonna throw it in there. Shouldn't affect anything. Shouldn't see any of that white mesh under there anymore. Ah, lost 2 of them. There we go. So now after I put that, I'm gonna put the oyster shells. This helps regulate the pH of my pond at the beginning of the pond, at the season, or the beginning of my pond's life cycle. My pond's pH was very low, so this helped me, and it also provides calcium to the crustaceans I have in the pond. And last but not least, I'm gonna put the bio balls. Again, I'll mention, I went ahead and I soaked these for a while in the pond water. I'll show you guys what they look like. They're little tiny balls. Inside they have a foam. Pretty sure you can open them. I cannot open them. They slip. No, I don't think. Yeah, I think you can open them. If you can open them, but still there's a, I don't know if you guys can make it out, but there's a piece of foam inside of that. All that's going to be surface area for beneficial bacteria. So on all the videos I saw, they recommend that you put them on the very top so there's no debris that will clog these guys. And all their function is going to be is to build, to grow, to be a growing bed for beneficial bacteria, if you will. So that's it, guys. Now I'm going to turn on the water and start letting this fill itself back up. Love it, guys, even if it's in little spurts, but the pond brings us together. Just trying to grab them. She was resilient to touch them at first, and now they're coming to her. Alright, guys, so now that I have finished refilling all the filter media in this barrel, I went ahead first of all I closed the valve here so we have no more drain. Removed the drain here. Once I finished filling it, I went ahead and I opened up the valve on that waterfall. So slowly this is going to start filling up with pond water, and it'll be ready to go, and I'll be doing the same thing to the next waterfall filter that we have. So now that my water is coming through, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of dechlorinator, just enough to cover the volume of this barrel. So remember, I did rinse all of my media with a regular hose, which has chlorinated water first, and then I dipped it into some pond water to hopefully keep some of that bacteria alive. My husband said just go ahead and do it that way, you know, they won't hurt them. It's a little bit of a chlorine, but you know what, guys, I've kept fish for a long time and I know better. If you're gonna keep fish, you got to do it right. Don't get any shortcuts. I know for sure there's a little bit of chlorine in this barrel because I went ahead and I rinsed with the hose. I hadn't done that in the past, but this time I did. So because of that, I went ahead and I added some dechlorinator. It's not going to affect your fish because that's what it is for. So this way there is no risk of my fish getting any chlorine once this waterfall resumes. So be safe, guys. Don't take shortcuts with your pond. Another thing I wanted to point out and show you guys is, since I turned on this UV filter, what I had mentioned in my other posts, check out that algae there, guys. All that there was green string algae, and if you notice, it's all white. Now it's all white, so the UV light is working amazingly to remove a lot of that string algae or to kill it. There's my waterfall, guys, back in circulation. Once all this settles down, it should be good to go, and it'll start clearing up here in the next in the next few minutes. Shouldn't take long. It's just gonna go through all that little bit of dirty water that we had in the bottom, and once that goes, it'll be clear water from there on. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm still learning as I go, and I want to thank all those YouTubers that have posted all those videos where I've learned a lot of this stuff. There's so many of them. I can't really mention them all, but there's so many of them, and thank you, guys. So hope you like this content, guys, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye. There it is, guys. After a few minutes, the water coming through all the filter media is clearing up. Waterfall flows reinstated. Just wanted to show you guys the media from the other filter. It's basically the same thing. The only difference is that I have a lot more barley sacks in this other one. And last but not least, I will be adding about 10 gallons of water, which is what I lost when I backfilled the two filter canisters. Adding, of course, the chlorinator and the one of the pond bombs to the other filter as well for the beneficial bacteria. Leave it clear. Cleo meeting the koi for the first time. And Dana hand feeding the koi for the first time. Cleo back. Can't trust this little one. She's not afraid to jump in. I think I could see her.
Move? No.
She could just drink water, she'd be fine. I'm afraid she'll jump in though. There we go. Good girl. Alright, back, Cleo. Cleo, come. Back.